So you never went straight into a paid work, right? So you
No.
volunteer. Obviously, they gave you kind of minimal, nominal
Like
reimbursements.
transport, yeah.
Yeah, and then what happened after that?
Yeah. So
Were your parents say you are working but not getting paid?
yeah. So my parents were, like I said, were very humble people. They always supported me. So my mother always gave me a little, transport to get a taxi
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go to town and to volunteer, because sometimes the NGOs, they don't even have the money to
Sure.
give you for transport. So anyway, my mother did that, a lot. And so I think because of the passion, the conviction that I had about it could be seen. It could be seen. There's something I did not get frustrated because. So I'll just give you this real example, because when I started volunteering and getting this transport and all of that, and then my seniors at that time felt like, this guy comes even when we don't give him transport. I think he has something, he believes in this organization. So then, after 6 months, I was given a contract, like as like an intern. So I interned there. I learned a lot, because I kept going to this place because each and every day I was learning something, and I knew it would be helpful. I don't know how, but it was going to be helpful. So anyway, like many NGOs just run on donor projects and all of that. So the project ended after 4 months, and so then again I didn't have any internship, but I kept going. To this place, and that's where my mother, kept on just giving me money to go back. And then I think after 6 months without this pay, another project came. So then I was recruited now as a program assistant, not an intern. So I worked as a program assistant with this organization called the Forum for Education NGOs in Uganda, doing lots of education policy advocacy and all of that. And then I joined eventually another organization called the Uganda National NGO Forum, and that for me was a turning point, because I then started earning a salary. I started making all contributions to family welfare and all of that. And
How old were you then?
maybe 24.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe 24. I remember this because my former boss then asked me one time, "But how old are you?" I said I was 25, and I'd been there for about a year or so. And so, he depended on me a lot for, writing. And, I think some of the skills I learned from my parents about, writing became very crucial. I like to tell this story, like when I was in school, all these boarding schools, you write a letter to your dad, I need pocket money, I need this, and that. And so he sent you the pocket money, but he kept the letter. So on the day you arrived, he was an English teacher. So then he has edited your letter. So this thing is there up till now. And of course, I use a computer now. Many people say, Arthur is always editing. It's really that. It's really that he edited, this should have been an I, you didn't put a comma here, this should have been a different paragraph, so.
But I also notice in the meeting you take notes, copious notes,
I take
That's
notes.
very good.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that discipline and paying attention to detail, and they were picked up by some people, by bosses, and so they put their trust in me, and I always did an extra mile, every single day. Just believing that I liked what I was doing. So then after NGO Forum, I worked with NGO Forum for 10 years. Then in between, I did a master's in the UK, master's in governance and development. So at the Institute of Development Studies, which is based at University of Sussex. Yes, correct. And
a lot of South Africans. That was one of Thabo Mbeki's famous recruiting school, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
The University of Sussex.
Wonderful.
The WITS PNDM.
Yeah.
which is also about public management.
Yeah.
Has its origins in the University of Sussex, by the way.
Okay, lovely,
Okay,
lovely.
yeah, go ahead.
So anyway, so after 10 years, I felt like I needed a break. So I felt that maybe I needed to I wanted to write 2 books after 10 years of working. I felt like I needed to write something about my history and my lessons in civil society. So I wanted to write something about the place of civil society in social change processes in Uganda. And then I wanted to write a book about the burden of wrong. I still feel like I should write the burden of wrong. Like it's the simple idea that all the bad things we do, all the wrong things we see in society are a huge burden. They are such a huge burden that we don't realize. Domestic violence, for instance, um, depriving women, mistreating women in homes, men feeling like women should not work, they should just be in the kitchen, and it's all a big burden we don't realize. So many things we do that sometimes give us satisfaction is a huge burden. So I've always wanted to write that. But anyway, those ideas are still there. The first one, I think I fulfilled it through another, mentor. I was able to co-edit a book on Uganda civil society that was published 2 years ago. So that part, I think I fulfilled, but this other book, I'll still dream about it. But anyway, I then I knew about ActionAid when I was at the NGO Forum because they used to support NGO Forum also. I think their governance structure was heavily supported by ActionAid because ActionAid went through this really remarkable internationalization process where they wanted to build, local institutions and local ownership. So even when they supported national organizations like the Uganda National NGO Forum, they were interested in areas that other, funders were not keen on, like governance.
Sure.
So that's where I kind of connected with ActionAid because of that support.
Okay.
Anyway, 10 years down the road.
And was there an ActionAid Uganda at the time?
Yes, that was ActionAid Uganda.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I then just made a decision that I wanted to take a break from work. I had no idea where I was going, but I just said, okay, I've made my contribution at the NGO Forum. Let me rest. So anyway, then someone sent me.
Why, Arthur?
I just felt
Were
like...
you tired?
Yeah, I was tired. And I also, when I came back from my master's in the UK, I contributed to developing a new strategy for the Uganda National NGO Forum. Okay. And I felt that we needed new blood at that time to take forward this strategy, not myself.
Yeah.
So in addition to being tired, I felt like this is the moment for me to transition because it's a new strategy. The organization was in good standing and all of that. I felt like it's a nice moment for me to move. But in any case, 10 years was quite some time in different positions, not one. Anyway, so then someone sent me, a gentleman called Nixon Ogwal. He sent me an advert for country director of ActionAid. And I did not pay a lot of attention. I knew who was the country director there, a guy called Charles Businge. He since left ActionAid. But he was my friend. So I called him. I said, but yeah, okay, you are the country director. So what is this? He said, well, if you're interested, apply. Of course, I have no role whatsoever. Like in ActionAid, country director can never have a role to recruit his successor. It's a practice in the organization. I think it's a good one. It's the role of the board to do that most of the case. So anyway, the thing that attracted me to ActionAid was, when you write your CV, you have your personal mission, you write what you believe in. And the mission of ActionAid, word for word, was like 95% same words as I have in my CV. I then said, this can't be an accident. Maybe this is a calling. I've freed myself from the NGO forum. Let's see. So I applied on the last day. And then I was recruited after 6 rounds of interviews. I was recruited. And it was such a blessing. So this is 2012. Now, ActionAid made me connect in a way that I had never before, because I was doing advocacy in the Forum for Education NGOs, advocacy again on civic space at the NGO forum and all of that. But ActionAid made me get back to the roots of community work, because
and you would have been in your mid-30s by then, right?
Yes, I was 33. I was, I think, 34.
And
I was 34.
As executive director.
Yes, country director. I think I was the youngest then.
I was going to go there. Where would you be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that right? You were the youngest?
Yes, correct. I was the youngest country director on record in ActionAid Uganda. Maybe up to now, still.
I like saying that you're also the youngest secretary.
Yeah, so, when you are young, you are open, you make mistakes, you learn, you move. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So I then got back to connecting with the community. I started seeing my life in ActionAid. It wasn't about going to big conferences, and it was working at the community level, and with women, with young people. I just felt all of a sudden this is what I've been looking for all along, So I gave my all to ActionAid. I loved what it was doing. I loved its politics. I loved its courage. I loved its mission, the flexibility, to grow. When I joined ActionAid, I was recruited by an HR regional HR manager. That I remember her one name, and she was Zimbabwean, called Sibo. Sibo told me that, okay, welcome to ActionAid. It's not a job, it's a career. I didn't know what this meant, but anyway.
I mean, a calling.
Yeah, you're going to grow in the organization. And one of the panel members, later on, I succeeded this gentleman eventually when I joined the Global Secretariat. It's called Chris Kinyanjui. Chris Kinyanjui said that the interview was part of the interview panel. I reminded him of another ActionAider called Brian Kagoro. Brian Kagoro used to work with ActionAid as well. And so I said, well...
Is Brian also from Uganda?
No, Brian is Zimbabwean.
Yeah.
He's from Zimbabwe. Okay. But Chris said, I reminded him about Brian. It was such an honor, because Brian is a guy, of course, we admire. So anyway, I joined ActionAid, gave it my best, and then after 5 years, I went to do a fellowship in the US, and then there was an opening. They went through a restructure in 2016, and then the whole reorganization ended about 2017. So they were recruiting. So I was requested to apply. At that time, I was not so interested in leaving the country. I loved what I was doing at country level. So when I was approached to apply, I said, no, I have this vision, what I want to do in Uganda. Now we have a new strategy. So this guy said, this is exactly why we need you, so that you do what you want to do in Uganda in other countries too. So anyway, I reluctantly applied. And then I became a Federation Development Director. For the first time, I left Uganda to work as an expatriate in ActionAid. So I went to Nairobi. I spent 5 years then, and then were hit by a big change process in 2021-22 that you referenced earlier. And our Secretary General at the time, Julia Sanchez from Canada, had to leave. So the board asked me to act in a time of really big crisis. So I rallied the troops using all of the experiences I have in conflict and dialogue and all of that, working with other people. And together we achieved a remarkable turnaround in a month, actually, an assembly that really, for lack of a better word, collapsed. It could not end. And then it was adjourned, because we couldn't agree as an organization. After exactly 40 days, we were able to convene again. And what had divided the organization at the time was overwhelmingly voted 100% with no exception. Everybody agreed on this new, mandate of the Global Secretariat. And I think the board at the time really just wanted somebody to hold fort as they think about a substantive Secretary General. But what we achieved together with the board and with the team that I was able to put together from internal, nothing external, was remarkable. And then the board turned my acting into interim so that they have a bit more time to do the right search for a substantive director, Secretary General. So, so this is now 2022. So beginning of 2020, no, late 2022 is when they advertised. I wasn't sure whether I would be a good fit for ActionAid as a substantive country director. One thing that my former boss Adriano told me in passing during appraisals, he said, "You are a good crisis manager." I didn't know. And then I started looking back and I felt that somehow I'm attracted to where there's crisis to find a solution. So really some of the remarkable changes I've made, whether at NGO Forum, at ActionAid Uganda, or the experience when I was acting or interim, were really achieving turnaround in organizational faith, So I wrote a letter to myself after this turnaround. It was a letter of doubt whether I am the right person for a more stable ActionAid, or whether my skills were utilized for a particular moment. I was asking questions in the letter to myself that I could not quite answer. So I decided to share this letter with 20 people. You happen to be one of them.
Yeah.
And 20 people.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You took a big gamble.
Yes.
5 I can understand, but 20?
20. Yeah. I wrote to 20 people. And guess what? 14 responded. 14 people responded, including people I was working with in the interim, like people I'd worked with, So out of the 14 that responded, 13 said, absolutely, yes, you should apply. And a number of them called me back and didn't just say apply, but talk to me. I remember you asking me, what is your gut feeling? Like, what's your gut telling you? It was challenging because I wasn't sure, but eventually I felt like I still owe something to the stability of this organization. So that was where my gut was, like the transition is not complete, maybe I should. So that's part of the reason I applied. But one person replied with more questions. Didn't say yes, didn't say no, but raised a lot of questions, which were very, very instrumental as well. I'm happy to say this person was Eva Joyce Wynne, again, another colleague I worked with at ILT. I deeply admire her. And her questions really made me think deeply about what my vision and mission should be if I'm the Secretary General. So anyway, I applied. We went through a very rigorous process and then I was appointed. So joining ActionAid in 2012 as a country director, from the outside, I'd never worked inside ActionAid before. Although I like to say that I have been on ActionAid's payroll for 12 years, maybe. This is the 13th year. But I've worked for ActionAid for much longer.
Through the NGO forum.
Not just that, through the belief that I have in what ActionAid does. So I have associated with what ActionAid does way back when I was not on their payroll. So
Arthur, I'm interested in, you were speaking earlier when you did the application. You spoke about the 95% of what you read in the text.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this discussion, can you
Yeah.
recap?
Yeah.
What was it? What were the key
the key
operative words that represented that alignment of 95%?
Equality, justice, dignity. Those kinds of words just resonated.
So it was the values and the principles.
Yes, the values and the principles in our mission. This is what really resonated. So I just take it as a deep honor to have gotten the opportunity to serve and also to work in South Africa, because this is where our head office is.
Okay.
And just to know the country more. Some of the people I've admired, growing up from childhood. Nelson Mandela, actually, out of my four big people I admire the whole world, two of them are South Africans. So one is Nelson Mandela, and the other one is Lucky Dube.
Okay.
Lucky Dube, just you go into my car, you get bored, because that's just the music I listen to all the time. Not because of reggae, it's more because of his message. Yeah. So Mandela, Lucky Dube. The other one is the Indian sister, Catholic sister called Teresa.
Mother Teresa.
Yeah, Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa really, she just always inspires me, not just by the quotes, but just how she lived. Just worked with poor people living in, gave them hope. So I'm so inspired by her. And the fourth one is Muhammad Ali, the former boxer. He passed on since, but Muhammad Ali was born Christian, then became a Muslim, and it was his faith, his belief in the Muslim faith. It was part of the early Muslim nations movement in the US. He rejected fighting in Vietnam because his faith didn't. Just he believed in certain things. So I've learned a lot from him, and just listening. He doesn't know me. I don't care, but his story is so important. So these are the four people that have learned and lived and tried to live a bit of the example. So anyway, the story of ActionAid continues. I am here in the organization maybe for another 2 or 3 years when my contract comes to an end, and it's a contract where I will transition out from. But it's been a fascinating journey, because after, I don't think I would have gotten through this leadership journey in another organization from a small country like Uganda, where I look, what my experience is. And in 10 years, from a country director, I am heading the institution. Is a remarkable journey, without a doubt. I think it's not so much about me. It's so much, it's both about me and the organization, because I think ActionAid has made me realize that my story and my experience matters. It's value. They value my story. They value my experience. Whatever I have lived through, the organization puts value in it. And so, and secondly, ActionAid doesn't just preach about empowerment and all of this. It truly tries to empower the people that work in it. So again, this is a true legacy that ActionAid should be proud of, that many people who work for it grow and lead bigger organizations when they leave ActionAid. So there's something about growth and belief in people that ActionAid doesn't just do in the communities, but does to its own people. And I'm an example of that. I will forever love this organization, forever contribute to its success, whether I'm inside or outside.